Hey everybody, Chris here again. Welcome back to the channel. Always good to have you with us. So today, we're gonna have a look at installing Windows 98 on an HP T5300 thin client. And this is actually a really cool machine. It has 64 megabytes of memory, 56 megabytes are available for use, 8 is dedicated to video. It actually comes with a really small disk-on module for storage, but you can upgrade that, and I actually suggest that you do. I'd probably go with a 1 gigabyte module or greater. They have to be horizontal like you see here, and you can readily find them available on eBay. Here's a picture as well where you can see something that you can find. This particular seller has a lot, so you could get one. Now, one of the cool things about this machine is it's based upon the Transmeta Caruso processor. And that particular processor is actually pretty neat. I've got a Wikipedia page showing here. It actually emulates Intel instructions, so pretty cool. I think it's fair to say that this processor is not as primitive as can be. Anyway, now something else. This procedure also works on the T5700. And no, you're not seeing double here as a function of watching too much Retro Tech Chris. It just so happens I have 2 of these, and the T5700 is also a great candidate for this procedure. It'll actually work identically. Now, what I suggest you do if you want to pick up a thin client to do this is understand that not all thin clients are created equally. So you can actually go to the Parky Towers website and see the specifications for a variety of thin clients. I suggest you proceed with caution. If you want to deviate or use something else, just make sure that you can get the drivers you want. These particular thin clients make great DOS machines, and they also work quite well with Windows 98. So what I'm going to show you today is the procedure for installing this. We're going to breeze through it. This is about a 20-minute video. Feel free to pause it. Feel free to refer to my procedure, which is in my GitHub repository as always, because, well, I like you guys. I like you to be able to repeat what we're doing, so you can see that as well. But yeah, definitely pause the video at different parts, slow it down maybe, and you can do that as well by changing the video speed, and you too can follow this procedure, and I hope that you do. What we're gonna look at is doing a format and install of the hard disk, or DOM, I should say in this case. From there, we will prepare an installer so that we can go ahead and copy over drivers and the Windows 98 SE installer. And then from there, we'll go ahead and actually perform the installation and set up the drivers. I'll take it to that point. I'll leave it up to you if you want to put any additional software on the machine, but we'll get you to that point and you'll be all set up to go and ready to do whatever you'd like to do in a Windows 98 world, fully connected to the network with good video and all of the good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started without further ado. Let's go. First, we're gonna have a look at some preconditions, and they're basically setting BIOS settings. So here you can see I'm paused on the BIOS start screen, and we'll press F10 to enter the BIOS, and then we can arrow down 4 times to get to the integrated peripherals that you see there. And we wanna make sure that the integrated audio, as well as the network controller, USB controller, USB keyboard support, and USB mouse support are all enabled. And that's what we have here. If not enabled, you can press enter, change the selection, and press enter again. Perfect. Let's hit escape, and we'll go back. Let's do arrow up once to go to the advanced BIOS features. And in here, we want to make sure our first boot device is a USB. So we can go in there and change it if we need to. Once again, just press enter. You also want your second boot device to be ATA flash, and that's set. So we're all set here. Perfect. So let's go ahead and hit escape, and we can go over to save and exit setup and hit Y to save, and we have now satisfied all of the preconditions. Next up, we're going to look at partitioning and formatting a USB stick. And the first thing I'm going to do is download this great program called UNetBootIN, or something like that. And we're also going to download a Windows 95B floppy image. Even though we're installing Windows 98, all boot disks does have a 98 SE boot disk, but it doesn't have the format program on it. So 95B should be sufficient for our needs. And now what we're going to do is actually launch unet boot in, or boot in, or however you say it. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create the bootable USB. First select the disk image and then go to floppy. And then from there we can navigate and choose that Windows 95B image, which I happen to have in my downloads folder. From there we can choose our drive, which is drive H. Make sure you get that right. Click OK, and we're done. So now we've got a bootable USB stick. Perfect. At this point, we can go ahead and put it in the thin client. And here you can see it booting, and it goes to this unet boot in menu. I just pressed enter rather than waiting the 10 seconds. And now we are booted to a DOS prompt. Perfect. I'm going to run fdisk and say no for large disk support. And then from there, we're going to change the current drive using option 5 and change to the second drive, because we boot with the USB stick and the quote-unquote hard drive, or DOM, is the second drive. Let's display partition information. You can see we have one partition with 956 megabytes. We're going to delete it because we're going to create a new partition. So I'll select one to delete and say I am sure, and it's gone. Bye-bye data. At this point we can exit fdisk and go ahead and restart the computer again. And we will run fdisk with a command line this time. The command line is going to be a special command. First we want to actually get the status of the drive, so you'll see me type here in just a second, fdisk/status. And that'll show us our two drives and the size of the drives. Now we can create a partition by saying fdisk and 2 for drive 2, /, and the size. And if we do that, now we have a partition all set. You don't get any feedback, but it's done. Great. And go ahead and reboot one more time. We can go ahead and format the drive, and it's going to be drive D. So we'll do a nice format command here in just a second. It's going to be a format D:/U/S. And you'll see me type that here in just a second here, once this finishes booting up. And the concept on this is to do an unconditional format and also apply the system. So there it is, format D:/U/S. And yes, all data will be lost. This formats very quickly since it is a DOM, which is flash memory. And then from there, we'll be asked for a volume label. We can press enter, and we're done. So now, let's take the USB stick out of the computer, and let's go ahead and reboot and see what we get. And it should say, starting Windows 95. That would be the most successful outcome, and indeed it does. If it doesn't, you may have more work to do. Go to the next section, and you can follow the steps there. Next, let's create an installer thumb drive that has our drivers and our Windows 98 SE installer. To do this, we're actually going to create a USB disk with FreeDOS on it, and I'm going to use Rufus to do this. What a name, great name. So here you can see that we have downloaded Rufus, and we're going to go ahead and launch it. And it will launch up here. I'm going to change the boot selection to be FreeDOS, and then from there, it's just a matter of coming down and pressing start. Once again, make sure you have the right USB drive selected. I'd hate for you to lose data, and I'm not responsible if you do. So there goes my window, since we just lost the actual partition on the USB stick. That's fine, we'll get it back here in a second, no big deal. So you can see this writing things out, writing out an MBR, and we are done. Let's go ahead and get that window back so that we can very easily copy files from the top window to the bottom window, which we will be doing here quite a bit. So, next step, speaking of copying files, we're going to grab the lovely xxcopy16, which is a great DOS version of Xcopy that works with FreeDOS. So I'll go ahead and grab that, and we'll just go ahead and unzip this right here, right now. I'm not even going to put it in a subfolder. It'll unzip our xxcopy16 executable, and we can take that and just drag that to the bottom, or copy it to the bottom. I'm going to copy that to the root of the USB stick. Perfect. Next up, we're going to copy mass storage drivers for Windows 98. Because what I want to do is actually use this USB stick to install all the other drivers that we're going to be downloading below. But it's actually easier to do that after we install Windows 98 due to copying things to DOS and 8.3 file limitations. You get the idea. So I don't really want to be copying drivers to the hard disk, if you will. Okay, so we've got that downloaded. Now we're going to download the rest of the drivers. So we'll go ahead and do that. And this is going to be the lightning round. I'm just going to download them quickly. We'll just download one, move to the next. We'll see it finish. and eventually we'll have 6 drivers that will be all ready to copy to the USB stick. First we grabbed the network drivers, now we're grabbing DirectX. Absolutely love this website. The individual who put this together deserves an award of some sort. Look how nice this is. It shows you which versions work with which operating systems. And we're going to grab the 8 December 2006 version of DirectX 9.0C. So let's go ahead and grab that and get that downloaded. And from there, we can move on and actually download the Rage XL video drivers, which will allow us to have nice, crisp, sharp video in Windows 98. So there you have that, downloading that. From there, we're going to download some nice sound drivers for the VIA chipset, and this happens to be the VIA vinyl drivers that we use with that 82C 686 chipset, which is so nice and versatile. Perhaps you've seen my video on DOS and Windows 3.11. That chipset works great in DOS thanks to some nice drivers that somebody has written. Okay, next we'll download some main chipset drivers, so let's go ahead and grab those. Thank you, Phil, from Phil's Computer Lab. You always do such a nice job of making things available. And next we need this one PCI to ISA bridge. I think it might be more of like a power management style driver. I think it's called that. I think it's misnamed. Anyway, we'll use that to get rid of our final exclamation mark when we go to do our Windows 98 driver installation. More on that in just a very few short minutes. So with everything downloaded, I'm going to copy it to the window below, and then I'm going to be using UniExtract to extract all of them at the same time. You may wish to do this. You may just use the Windows unzip and unzip things one by one, or if you're on a Mac or Linux, what have you. So we'll let this run through. Sometimes later, I sped it up because I like you guys. Now we can go ahead and delete all the zip files, and we have our nice 6 unzipped directories or so, if I counted right. Perfect. So that makes things nice and easy. Next up, we need to grab our Windows 98 installer. That's why we're here after all, right? And I suggest you just name this install so it's consistent with my directions. So I found mine and I did that. We'll go ahead and copy that down to the bottom of the root of the USB stick. I got a couple of warnings about permission since I'm going from an NTFS to a FAT32 file system. Just click yes. From here, I have put the USB stick into the thin client. We are starting up. Look at that, loading FreeDOS. Perfect. And what we're going to do is make a directory so that we can go ahead and copy the installer over. And then we will use that lovely xxcopy16 to do the copying. And this will take a little while, so go get yourself a cup of coffee or something, or soda, or whatever you like, water, it doesn't matter. And from there you can see it's done. And the only other thing we're going to do is also copy the NUSB utility over so that we have the mass storage drivers available to us. So as we go to install Windows 98, we have everything that we need to get it installed, as well as have those mass storage drivers ready to copy over to the system and install. So now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for. CD install and then setup to start setting up Windows 98. Of course, ScanDisk will want to run. I think that Dave from Dave's Garage actually helped write this, if I'm not mistaken. He's a really cool dude. You should check out his channel. From here, we'll see Windows Setup go ahead and start up and start to do its thing and do its preparations, and I've sped up a lot of this portion. Accept the license agreement, put in your product key. Always good to do that. Mine pre-filled based upon the distribution type. Choose your setup directory of Windows. From there, the directory will be nice and prepared, whatever that means. I choose a typical install, put in your name. I think I get it right on the second try. Got to put that space in there, Chris. Perfect. Next, install most common components. Perfect. Location, you choose your location. I'm in the United States. From there, we can start copying files. This is the point where before you had a cup of coffee, now you get to have a 4-course meal. And about a half an hour later, we'll get to this point, maybe a little less than a half an hour, and we get to put in our computer name, which I will also get right on the second try. And I usually use the workgroup of workgroup as well. So this is the first thing we'll be asked to do as we go through this part of the setup process. I'll speed it up again. The next thing you get to do is choose your time zone, so go ahead and do that. That's great. And then from there, it'll finish up its other items in the checklist and restart. And now we get to put in our Windows password. I just say okay, because I don't choose a password. You can certainly choose one if you would like to. We have the startup screen, which I'm going to say don't show me ever again, and close. And now we can really get to town. So let's go ahead and install those mass storage USB drivers. I'm going to go to drive C, since I very conveniently put them in the root of the directory, the NUSB. installer. Let's go ahead and double click on that and say yes to accept. And then from there, it's going to go to town and do its thing. And of course, we're going to have to reboot because, well, you know, Windows 98. So from there, we can go ahead and reboot. And once again, lightning around there. And I can put the USB drive in. We'll pop up my computer here, and the magic will happen when a removable disk drive D appears, which will happen at any second now. And lo and behold, as we wait, we can see that there it is. Perfect. Go ahead and click on that removable drive, and let's copy over the drivers directory. We can see that there. And now we're going to have all of our drivers in nice format, no 8.3 limitations if we were to have copied in DOS. That's why I chose this approach to do this later. All right, let's go to town. First thing I want to do is actually remove a rogue PS2 mouse that got detected during setup. I'm not really sure why. So we'll go to Properties on my computer, go to Device Manager, look for that PS2 mouse, select it, and then go down to Remove, and that will get rid of it. Click OK. And then you can click Close. Gone. All right. Now let's go ahead and do some driver installations. This is the fun part, right? So let's pop on over to that drivers folder and pick the first one. And the first one we're going to pick are those Rhine network drivers at the bottom left that you see there. So I'll go ahead and select that. Drill down into the folders. We want x86. This is not a 64-bit machine, as far as I know. And then from there, we can go ahead and run win setup. Easy peasy. And I think maybe we have to accept a thing or two. Actually, maybe not. That's it. Click yes to restart. Once again, because, well, 98, and there you have it. So next up, we're going to do audio drivers. So you see me clicking on that vinyl directory and drill down and find the setup program that you see in there. And this one gets a little bit wonky during installation. Some of the windows flip-flop back and forth, but we'll work through it. Maybe that happens to you, maybe it doesn't. I have no idea why it did what it did. But we have this nice window here where we can go ahead and click next. That does pop up in the foreground, fortunately. Of course we agree. And then from there we can hit next again to go ahead and move forward with the installation. And then next again, and we'll see it do its thing, copying over codecs and installing the driver. That's absolutely perfect. And nothing failed, so now we can hit next and we can be done. Once again, time to restart once again. Next up, we're going to turn our attention to video. We need to install the DirectX drivers before we actually install the Rage XL drivers. So we'll go ahead and double click on that and agree. And it's going to ask us to extract to a temporary folder. So we can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to say DXTMP, click OK, click yes. And sometime later, this is really slow, guys. Of course, I've sped it up because I like you. But sometime later, it will be extracted. And we can go ahead and navigate to that C:\DXTMP directory that it's now in once I get my act together here and actually do that. So we'll go ahead and navigate over there. And we can then run the DX installer. So there we have it, navigate it over, and let's scroll down and find it. Down in there somewhere, DX setup, double click. And this is also very slow. Accept the agreement and next, and then from there next, and off it goes. And sometime later, no, it's not that fast, we can go ahead and hit finish and once again restart the computer. Anybody keeping track of how many times we've restarted so far? Next, let's do our Rage XL drivers. So we can go ahead and drill down into that. That seems to be my word for the day. And we can look for the setup program. Of course, we want the Windows 9X and ME version because that's what we're running. And we can scroll down here and find the setup program and run that. Look at that nice ATI image there, which will look even better after we install. So next, and then yes. And then it's going to go about doing its thing. And I've also sped this up. Let's restart the computer and we'll be in business. We'll have nice, rich color video. Look at that. Isn't that nice? All right, next up, let's do our chipset drivers. And we're going to start with the Hyperion drivers. So we can go ahead and click into that. And then we can scroll down and find the setup program for this and double click accordingly. And from there, you can see it's doing its installation preparation. And the funny thing about this one is I think it comes back and says it fails, but it actually seems to succeed. So we'll go ahead and agree and do next and next again. And it'll go ahead and do its thing here once we hit next again. There we go. and it says it was interrupted, but once again, I think things are just fine, so no worries there. Okay, so now we're going to go to My Computer and right-click and say Properties so that we can fix up a yellow exclamation point for the IDE drivers. And what we're going to want to do is double-click on that and change the settings for the driver to be single channel only, so only primary IDE, because we only have one IDE channel in this system. Click OK, and we'll reboot. And that's going to take care of that yellow exclamation point. Now, we will get prompted for a couple of drivers due to the chipset drivers installing on our next Windows boot. Just kind of click through it when prompted and you should be fine, and I bet you know what's coming next. If you could have guessed, after these IDE controllers get established, yes, once again, we reboot. So there you have it. And now we can work on taking care of probably the final yellow exclamation point. So let's go ahead and cruise over to Device Manager, and it's going to be this PCI bridge. So we're going to go to Device Manager, and we're going to specify the location of the driver for this one, specify location, and if you downloaded the same driver I did, it's going to be in the drivers folder, and it's going to be called Win98. So down to drivers, down to Win98, click OK. It will find an updated driver accordingly once we go ahead and click on Next here, and you will see there it is, a Tech Power Management Controller. Next, and then it'll go ahead and pull from the CD there, and we can click Finish. And by CD, I mean the Windows 98 installation directory, of course. So close and then OK, and look at that, no yellow exclamation points on an HP T5300 thin client. How exciting. Let's see that again. That's so exciting. I want to see that again. No yellow exclamation points. Well, that's what I had for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that you pick up a T5300 or a T5700 and try this for yourself. Maybe you can find one on eBay. Maybe you can find one somewhere else. Whatever works for you. In all cases, definitely subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more content on the way. I have a list of videos I want to make. I think it's somewhere in the hundreds at this point. Okay, maybe not that many, but it's pretty high. So we'll continue to make videos and release them, probably at a weekly cadence. Ring that notification bell and you'll be notified when those videos are available. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me a lot. If not, well, give it a thumbs down. That helps me as well. Helps me decide what sort of content we're going to make in the future. As always, it's been great having you along for the journey, and I look forward to seeing you next time for the next video. But until then, feel free to comment below and offer what you see or any thoughts you have on this particular installation. Until next time, bye for now.